Have I told y'all how I manifested this car?
Wait, have you even seen my car? It's dirty. I have an electric Mercedes. So I managed to manifest the very first all-electric luxury vehicle. I got it in 2023, about a year ago. It's a 2023 model. Now, Mercedes did have the EQBs before, but they are not considered luxury even though they're a Mercedes brand. This is luxury. There's a couple of ways that I manifested it. So way back in 2020, I was driving in my track and field mom SUV, stuck in traffic. I look over next to me. It's a youngish looking woman, a brand new, it looked brand new. It was like sparkling. It was beautiful. S-Class Mercedes. And I looked over at her, and initially the first thought I had was like, how did she get that? What did she do? Because she looked a lot younger than my actual age. I was like, what, 36 or something? 37. I was like, how did she get that? Like, I want to be able to get that too. I just left it at that. My next car, I want to get a Mercedes. At the end of the year, I ended up like just applying for financing and ended up getting a C250, my very first Mercedes. I got it more so as a business thing to kind of validate me getting it for my birthday, but also as a business expense. So it was a Toro car, and it ended up getting totaled a few months later. But I still have my key. Still, like after having a C250 and experiencing luxury, I was like, okay, I know exactly what it is. Next car I get is going to be a Mercedes. Summer of 2022. Looking all over the country to actually find my next Mercedes, even though I didn't have a job at the time. I ended up flying all the way up to Chicago to go get a car that I supposedly qualified for, which was a C300. And when I got there, they're like, oh yeah, no, you don't qualify for that one anymore, but we can't give you this Volkswagen. I was pissed, but I didn't have a way back home. So I took the Volkswagen, drove it back home all the way to Georgia from Chicago. When I got there, I said, I don't want this, so I'm not going to accept it. Sorry, universe. So I just parked the car for 2 weeks, and then I ended up driving it back 2 weeks later, and I hopped on a flight to come back. When I got on that flight, I also hopped onto Tinder and created a profile or whatever when I was on the flight. And within, a few minutes of me being back on Tinder, I matched with this guy who had made a comment, which is the only reason I paid attention to him. Come to find out, he worked at a Mercedes-Benz dealership here in Atlanta, here in Buckhead. Anyways, that is my partner now. So it was very interesting. Like, I went to take back the Volkswagen. The universe handed me a car that was not my Mercedes. And then the first thing the universe did was said, here's this man who works for Mercedes, right? I didn't put two and two together at that time. We ended up being together, and he had two Mercedes. So I had it in my access. I was always able to drive his C250, which I drove a lot, and he also has an M63. So I would, I had those two in my access, and I'm like, oh my, this time I manifested two more Mercedes or whatever, even though they're not mine. Then he brought up to me like, hey, we got the electric Mercedes, and probably at the end of the year, this was last year, 2022, he's like, at the end of the year, they usually do like some kind of special deal for friends and family. So, you probably should get an electric Mercedes. And I was like, electric Mercedes? First thing I thought was like, I can't afford a Mercedes. Like, how am I going to get an electric Mercedes? Not with what I'm making right now. But then I was like, you know what, forget it. I have manifested before, and I just said, before my birthday, before the end of the year, I am going to get an all-electric Mercedes. 2 weeks later, he's like, oh my God, they're doing a deal now for friends and family. Why don't you go ahead and get one? I'm like, babe, my credit's not where I want it to be. I can't afford the payment, like regardless of what it's gonna be. And he was like, no, let's just see. He took me to the Mercedes-Benz website. You can basically like create the car that you want, right? So I picked out the color. The color I picked out was midnight blue. It wasn't this blue, but I picked out the color. It was a blue. I picked out all the options. White cream interior, and I had already like test drove one, right? I picked out absolutely everything I wanted. AMG seats, right? Everything that I wanted. Before they like create the car, they tried to see if there's one in your area with all of those things. Was one, and it said it was at his dealership, but at that time, we had known like all of the cars had already been like pretty much claimed by other employees and family members and things like that. So we went looking for the car. They said it was there on the website, but then when they looked for it in the inventory, it wasn't there. They're like, okay, they're catching up with the inventory. It just somebody must have already taken it. So I was a little bummed. So like for a week or two, he's like, well, they might have another one. Let's just wait to see if somebody brings one back. He tells me, come up to the dealership. There's like 3 here. Just see if you like any of those. I was still bummed because it wasn't what I wanted. The dealership has a garage, so as we're walking around like inside the garage, I see this car parked over in the corner being charged. I was like, what about that car? He's like, I don't know, that's someone's, but it's been sitting there at the charger for like weeks now. I walked up to it. I'm like, No, that's the car. Like, we opened it and it was literally the car that I wanted, and it did have like a note on it that somebody had claimed it. But then we went to go talk to the sales guy, and he was like, no, that's, you know, someone said they wanted it, but they're not taking it. The literal exact, like, all the features, everything that I had wanted, that I created on that website, is in the car that I want. Every single thing, nothing extra, not one thing extra, not one thing less. Everything. Oh, except the only thing that's different, the color, and then the what are these things called? The rims or the hubcaps or whatever, the rims, right? Because I had wanted these other ones. He ended up getting another one, and it had that rims, and we were gonna trade, but then I was like, I don't like them, so this is exactly what I like. I manifested this car by literally creating it on the website, and like now I have the exact car that I created. Once he did the friends and families deal, like, it was completely within my range, because this car by itself, like with the markup price on it, it would be like $1,800 a month. I don't pay nowhere near that, okay? Nowhere near that. But yeah, that's how I manifested my Mercedes.